church. Bernard Grandpierre used to go to church as a child, but he never liked even the idea of going to church. And there were plenty of occasions over the years during the times when he used to go to church where, because he would get so upset about the thought of having to haul his ass down to church, that sometimes a storm would brew up more and more as he would get angrier and more upset about it. And as a result, in a lot of cases, when he would go to church, it would end up being really rainy on his way there. When inside, everyone would just sit around listening to some guy talk about things from in the Bible and other stuff relating to God and whatnot. It was incredibly boring for Bernard Grandpierre. He would just sit there feeling upset, thinking about doing anything else besides being in church. He also didn't like the kind of clothes he would have to wear. He thought the clothes looked and felt awful and would often feel very uncomfortable whilst wearing them. So everyone would just sit around listening to this guy talk about all sorts of random shit for an incredibly long period of time. Then, when he would finally shut up, they would play some church music and get up and start singing and dancing to it. Bernard never liked church music. He always found the lyrics, melodies, and other aspects church music to feel very repetitive and monotonous. And if there was one thing Bernard liked with his music, it was definitely variety. So the church music only degraded the experience further for him. And the other things they would have Bernard do at church, like the little group activities they would do. Bernard found those activities to be very boring, and so Bernard never liked those either. And they would spend a lot of time doing those activities too, which felt very shitty for Bernard. Bernard, as you would expect, also didn't enjoy socializing with the other children there very much either, and the bathrooms at church also creeped him out. The pathways to get to the bathrooms and the bathrooms themselves were always dark and dank and cold, with unpainted concrete walls, and usually there wasn't anyone else there but him when he would go, and if there was another person, it would often be just them. To be in a dark, creepy part of the church like that, all alone, was never a very comforting experience for Bernard. It made him feel unsafe. As a matter of fact, the entire church itself gave him the creeps. The church was very large and echoey, and the architecture made it feel like some kind of medieval castle or dungeon or something. Bernard thought that was a little weird, and so he didn't feel comfortable. Bernard Grandpierre's grandmother was very religious, and when he would go to church, he would also have to do Bible lessons with her. She talked to him and others about God and Jesus Christ and other stuff in the Bible, on and on and on. Overall, the only part of church Bernard would always like was when he would get to leave. That always made him feel better, not only because he would get to go outside, breathe in some fresh air, and admire the nature and the scenery, but also because he would finally get to go home. Bernard Grandpierre's philosophy was that if God and Jesus was everywhere all at once, as people would always say to him, then that got him thinking, what's the difference if he prayed to him in the comfort of his own home compared to if he's at church. He'd still be there, he thought. So he never went back to church and prayed and talked to God from home on his own. Bernard Grandpierre had a much more enjoyable, educational, and substantial experience talking to God at home compared to at church. As he got older, he thought more and more about all the horrible things that happened in the world and got upset, angrily wondering why God hadn't stepped in to do anything about all those awful things. Until he read a part of the Bible he had never read before. It changed his life for good and permanently changed the way he felt about God and himself. It made him more confident and happy. He loved God after that. In the end, all he really wanted was a more fun, enjoyable, and fruitful way of learning about and worshiping God and Jesus Christ.